Alright folks, so the last video I posted, I had some requests for this particular story. You know, here in the den, there's lots of memories. One of the reasons, honey, if you would just kind of scan around this way. There are a lot of memories around this room. And the reason we have a man cave, the reason that we have a man cave or we mount animals, collect trophies, is for memories. And so I had some requests about these two deer and the story behind it. So on the same day, I shot both deer about 3 hours apart maybe. But I harvested them 1 year apart. So today, I'm going to tell you that story. Alright, so I'm going to tell the story, and so when I tell stories, I start with, so there I was. Or either back in the day, or in my karate classes, this is a Master Clement story. Who's ready for a Master Clement story? You know, and everybody gets all excited. So, I'll start out by saying this. So there I was. It was 19 degrees. About the second week in November in Virginia. And this was black powder season and muzzleloader season in Virginia. Deer's in the rut. And I forget which day of the week it was. I want to say it might have been a Saturday morning, but it was cold. When I went into the woods on the way to my stand, I mean, I busted a bunch of deer. All I heard was, you know, when they sneeze and they take off. I mean, it was a bunch. I had a whole herd bedding down near my stand. And so when I got there, I was very disappointed. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. So climb up in the stand, and I usually get, in the mornings, I usually get to my stand about an hour before daylight. Because I want to get settled, I want the woods to get quiet, I want all this to just calm down, and I want to kind of be there without them knowing I'm there, obviously, right? So I'm sitting there in the stand, I'm kind of mad because I spooked everything and their brother, and it's loud in the dark in the early morning when you bust a deer. So I'm sitting in my stand, and my deer stands that I built were like little decks up in the tree. So I just kind of stretched out a little bit, and I was going to take a nap. I was all bundled up in my coat, and I just kind of laid back, and I don't know if I fell asleep or not, I can't remember. But the sun started coming up, and when the sun started coming up, I was looking down a power line. That's how my tree stand was set up. And over in the distance, up on the hill, I could see something that didn't quite look right. I mean, there were some bushes and the power line, you know, hadn't been mowed in a couple years. And there was just something that didn't quite look right. I put the scope up, but you couldn't really see through the scope. It was too dark. So I just waited, and it got a little lighter. And I waited some more, got a little lighter. I said, man, something just don't look right. And when I put the scope up, put the gun up, I kind of noticed the silhouette of a deer mouth kind of moving like this. He was chewing his cud. That big deer right there was laid in the middle of the power line, all curled up, chewing his cud, just relaxing, waiting for a doe to come by, I'm sure. I didn't think much of it at the time because there's deer all over the place, right? You know, a bunch of does. I'm just kind of watching them, and I couldn't really make out, you know, the antlers or anything yet. And finally got a little bit more light, a little bit more light. And then when I put the scope up, about the time I put the scope up and I was able to actually see through it, he turned his head just a little bit. And that bush that I saw in the middle of the power line was his antlers. I got excited. And then I got scared because the rifle that I had was given to me by a karate student a couple years earlier that couldn't pay for classes, but you know, he said, I don't have any money the money that I owe you, but would you be interested in a muzzleloader? I said, sure. You know, it's a Thompson Center Firearms. So just so you know, with some of these black powder guns, they shoot certain kinds of ammo differently. Each brand shoots differently. That's with any rifle. And at the time when I shot these deer, I didn't know that. A couple years before, I missed another nice buck, and I just knew it was going to happen again. But just so you know the backstory to that gun, that's what I thought was going on. I had missed another shot. Sometimes it'd be on, sometimes it wouldn't. I just could never zero it in right. But now, I can shoot that thing 100 yards, no problem. I can drive a nail because I'm shooting the cheapest ammo you can buy, and it shoots it the best. Who would have thought? So I pulled that rifle up, set it on the, remember I have my tree stands or decks, and I put the rifle on the deck, and I aimed down. Remember, he's all laid up. He's curled up, kind of laying down with his head up, chewing his cud. And I squeeze off the shot. And of course it's black powder. I mean, just smoke everywhere. You can't see anything. And the last glimpse I got was just a few seconds later was this big old bush right here bouncing off up the hill into the woods. Oh, I can't believe it. Did I hit him? I don't know. And I started getting upset. And I had missed some nice deer with that rifle. And I just stayed there in the stand, reloaded. I was mad because, I expected that deer just to stay put, right through the heart, done. And I reloaded and I was mad. And I said to myself, I'm going to give that deer a good hour. And about an hour later, I heard some rustling and some movement. And so I got real attentive, and over across the power line there was a bunch of running around going on, and didn't think much of it and just kind of relaxed. I said, I'm going to stay put. I'm not going to scare anything because, deer are moving. So I waited probably another half hour, probably 2 hours total. And this deer, that deer right there, all right, I'll explain why I know it was that deer, came busting right toward me, coming across the power line, right to me. And so I was, oh crap, that's a hard shot dead on, and so I go, meh, and it stopped, turned a little bit, and just gave me just enough of an angle where I could have a good hard shot. And so I aimed, and it jerked its leg back. It jerked its leg back and shot off. It was about a 50-yard shot. I was like, my goodness. And by the way, that deer right there, that was a 100-yard shot. All right, so he jerked his leg back and he's gone. I said, oh good, I hit him. Thought I hit it right in the, right behind the shoulder. So I waited about a good half hour and I said, then I'll start trailing him. So I wasn't worried too much about that. I mean, I was worried about that deer, but I figured I just missed him. So I was going to track that deer. So I went out into the woods about a half hour later, reloaded my gun, get in there, start tracking him. I find one speck of blood, and I spend 40 minutes circling that area, making it into a grid. I found one speck of blood and a little piece of bone is all I could find. Well, there we go. So I find that piece of bone, and I'm like, I guess I just clipped him, and I was really upset. Then I go back up the power line to where that deer was, about 100 yards away from the stand, and went up to where I shot him. You can still see the place where he was laid down. I mean, it was free of frost. It was a compressed area. And I looked all around for blood. There was no blood whatsoever. No hair. There wasn't any hair. I had no sign that I had hit him whatsoever. And I was like, oh! And so I take that gun, and I was just about to throw it down on a log. I looked up over the hill when I did that. I just kind of like, my head raised up, and I saw up on the hillside that deer upside down. I did shoot him right through the heart. He just took a few, about 25 yards or so, and just keeled over. And I never saw him through the smoke and the thick underbrush. Whoo! I was so excited. So I got that deer. Remember, I still shot this one. So the next year, my daughter and I are coming home from church one Wednesday night. And coming close to our house, I saw that deer. I didn't know it at the time, but it was that deer on the side of a little off the side of the road into a pasture under a licking branch, and he was really working that licking branch with his face and his antlers. And I told my daughter, I said, I know right where he's going to be in the morning. I'm going to go and wait for him. So sure enough, I got a late start. I didn't get out there till about 8 o'clock, but I knew where the does were going to be running, and I knew that he'd be waiting on them. And so I set myself up, and sure enough, about 10 o'clock that morning, I heard the does coming. So I got right behind my tree. I'm on the ground now. I'm not in a tree stand. I'm on the ground, and I'm just waiting. And I have that same gun. So I'm waiting right behind that tree. And I'm waiting for the doe. There comes a doe, there comes a doe, there comes a doe, and then there comes a deer. And I see the antlers. I see the antlers. As soon as I see the antlers, get it right behind the shoulder, focus on that small spot. Boom! Smoke. Everywhere. Pew! He's gone. All right, the whole place just erupts because apparently there were deer all around me. I didn't even notice. All right, the does start running this way. He runs that way. The smoke clears. And then all of a sudden another buck comes out of nowhere and flies across to the left. All right, and this dude went to the right. And so I just kind of wait, wait a good half hour, go to where I shot the deer, and I found a little bit of blood. Okay, good. And then I tracked him for a little bit, and sure enough, about 130 yards, and he piled up, and I shot him right through both lungs. Well, when I started inspecting him, when we gutted him, on his front leg was a gunshot wound, and a piece of that bone was missing. And that was the same deer that I shot in the leg the same day that I shot that deer. And that's that story. And I think they're a little related. If you look at the brow tines, you can see the brow tines are real similar. So they might be in the same genetic pool. But just a beautiful, beautiful bucks. And this one is a little bit more of a buckskin, and this one has a darker skin. And I wish I had better lighting in here to really show you, but they're just, let me open this up so you can maybe shed some more light in it. But it's some beautiful, gorgeous animals.